Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're sitting at Reverb Music Festival with a rock star, the first one to hop on. Welcome to the show, Randy Winter from the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus.
Greetings, Earthlings.
Dude, you're back. You're the second-time guest. The only one, because we just talked 3 days ago at my cabin.
I'm the anomaly.
Dude, my dad got to be famous for a second. I told him specifically, like, hey, I'm about to be talking to this guy. Don't come in the cabin. Hang out outside with the kids. When they get out of the lake, keep them still. And sure enough, he like wanders through the background like a bear. I'm like, thanks, dude.
Newton's Law.
Yeah, solid. So anyways, how's your trip up? You were just in, what, Madison?
Yep. Yeah, we did Fort Wayne, then cruised over to Madison, and then came here. Yep.
Where are you going after this?
We're heading to New Mexico. Wait, no, we're doing Eau Claire, and then...
We're Eau Claire right now.
Oh, no, not Eau Claire. Wow, Council Bluffs. Sorry.
Okay.
Brand lag.
Where is Council Bluffs? What state? I don't even know where
Iowa.
it is. Oh, okay, cool. And then you're going to New Mexico.
Right.
And you're driving in your tiny house.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Tiny house, van life.
Dude,
Woo!
how long is this tour going? How much longer are you going to be out?
I mean, we're smack dab in the middle of it right now. It's a long, long tour. But what we do in our wiser elder emo years, we'll do like 2 or 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 or 3 weeks on, 2 or 3 weeks off. And we'll just keep doing that for months on end. And it's less monotonous and less psychologically fatiguing to the neural cortex.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I imagine, like anything, I imagine like the luster the first few times that you travel the country and travel the world is just like new thing. It's incredible. And then once you've done it a bit, it's like, well, I got to pace myself if I want to still have fun.
Yeah, that can happen at first. You kind of go through a cycle, actually. Yeah, you get the new honeymoon phase and then the homesick phase. And then, because that's kind of weird, like you're gone and then all you can do is think about, all right, when am I going to get back? When am I going to get back? And that like, it's a total polar reverse. Like you go from like always wanting a tour to like, when am I going to get back? And that's when, of course, you're married with it, babies.
Yeah.
Like I am now.
Then
so
you
it
just
changes.
bring
but
them
then
with.
once, yeah, like that's what we realized. We realized in the meltdown of 2020 that, you know what, let's just stay together as a unit and let's figure out a way to make that happen. So we picked up a modded out Sprinter and it's decked out like a tiny house, tiled in tub, shower, parallel storage, queen, orthopedic. I put in a tankless hot water heater, 6 kilowatts of solar. I mean, it's like a little mobile hotel room. It's super comfortable. And then under the bed in the very back is like a garage. So like I put all my cool production stuff there and tools and, like things like little mechanical issues will arise too. Like last night we were driving at about 2 or 3:30 in the morning. Like I started hearing this ting and my wife heard it too. And I was like, what is that? It was a super unfamiliar sound. And I'm familiar with it, at least the basics of like, like, hey, all battery, alternator, this and that.
Yeah.
But this was an unfamiliar sound. It almost sounded like just something dangling, like ding, ding, ding. Because every time a semi truck would go by, it would vacuum it. But it was like just the heat shield had come loose. So, things like that, you learn to like, you need to start learning a little bit about everything or you're going to go to the dealership and they're going to charge you $2,000 once you leave the room and tell you it was a list of other things. And they'll do those things too to make it legit, but like they were unnecessary. So like that's cool about the tiny house rig. You have production in the back of it, your tools, all your necessities, all the dad life things, all the baby life things. My wife's 20 suitcases and I only have a backpack.
You're one pair of shoes
yeah,
for 30.
I've really learned over my years to just like keep everything minimalist and low maintenance on my end. So then I can handle everybody else's end, really. Because like if I have a bunch of stuff, then by the time I get done with my stuff, I'm stressing out because I don't have enough time to handle everybody else's. So I've minimized my own, so therefore I have more to take care of others.
Yeah, well, and I think as you're coming up, all of a sudden you have money and you have resources to get all the things. And then you realize you have to maintain all the things.
Yeah,
and then you get to a
like
point
that.
where you're like, I don't necessarily need all the things just because I could get all the
Right,
things.
yeah, that's where that saying comes from with, like knowledge comes sorrow. Like with our baby, she'll learn something And then she'll get frustrated about it. It's like, hey, a month ago, she would have never gotten frustrated and have an angry meltdown about that word or whatever it was because she didn't know about it. But the second you start become aware of something consciously, then a whole another set of parameters and variables could now occur. And with the music industry and developing, like you're saying, you do start to acquire a little bit more resources financially, but like as you're getting them, they start getting allocated immediately. So you have to really learn to live within your means, or you're gonna be sinking for sure.
Yeah, I think the best lesson I ever learned financially was taking a huge pay cut. So I made pretty good money when I was like 22. I was an assistant manager at Verizon and not making rock star money, but I was doing pretty well for myself in this tiny little town that I live in. 69,000 people, not that small, but still, I made more than enough that I ever needed, right? Nice. And I opened my skateboard shop knowing like selling skateboards makes nothing, right? Yeah, my skateboard shop turns 10 years old in April. So I've been doing that a long time. Yeah, but when I did that, all of a sudden I realized like, whoa, I really don't need that much money to survive at all. And then my relationship with money drastically changed. Is that kind of how it worked with you too? As like after you guys initially just like took off where everything I imagine must have been a little bit of a blur, but then things kind of mellowed out a little bit and you guys are still traveling and doing all kinds of stuff, but it's not quite the same like crazy spark that it once was.
That analogy is actually perfect because what you did is you melted it down and focused on pursuing a passion. So like that's exactly what we do. So once you actually find a way to cross a bridge financially and like your work-wise, like I did construction, database management, webmaster, SEO campaigns, like all this stuff. And then eventually music started to pay the bills. And the things that I did enjoy that I was passionate about, I kept with that, my work flow, so to say. And because of that, like you don't lose the drive. You start to like kind of like actually get more motivated, and it just works, because you don't feel burned out, like because it's not something you're not passionate about. So that's why it's so important to like look at jobs as like a bridge, and that's their purpose. It's a means to another job until you finally get that passionate position that you actually was your end game goal. And then you incubate it. If you're smart, you incubate it along the way if you can, with a side hustle, or like if it's a band, start like say you're working 9 to 5 nonstop and you don't even have time to get members and stuff like that, but you have a few hours a night. Okay, we'll go ahead and start a few social media platforms with it, lock down your tag and start incubating that, so when the time comes and you do find the right people who aren't all whacked out on whatever it is and actually have that same passion and they're equally yoked, then the incubation process of the initial part won't, give you anxiety or whatever it is that prevents people from de-hoarding, so to say, because that's the same source. It's they want to do it, and then all of a sudden they get overwhelmed with how much there is to do. So if you incubate what you're thinking about along the way, when you go to start it, it's already started.
Yeah, I mean, anything when you own a business nowadays, there's just so many hats that you have to wear. Otherwise, you're going to be, just like you're talking about a mechanic, you're going to be drastically overpaying for things all across the board to be done not to the way you want them.
This is the new way. That is the new model. And that's just how it's going to be for all of us that are pretty much born after 2000, I would say.
Yeah.
You're living in a paradigm shift now. So like the older model was, okay, I'm just going to do this and that's it. That's just not how it works anymore. Now you need to know how to do that and everything surrounding in that production realm. So you're going to excel past the others, and you're going to, grow strength that way as an individual, and you're just going to be very successful because you're not reliant and dependent on 30 other, things that are mechanical in their own nature and also have their own little functions. So if you try to do as much as you can when it comes time, like if something happens, you're not like, I need a tech to come over here and adjust this XLR or adjust this gain structure. And you already know that because you already learned that part of the trade. It's a full skill set that future is what I see, like technical schools versus going to college and actually spending uber amounts of money and time on irrelevant things that are not going to really benefit you whatsoever. Aside from the indoctrination aspect.
Sure. No, I agree, because the tools that are available are different. You go, especially if you want to go into marketing or something like that.
That's how it used to be too.
Yeah, it's just like the professors are teaching programs based on this is what was successful and what worked in the past, but it's such a fast-moving, world that what they're teaching is irrelevant information now. That's why you're seeing all
100%.
these large corporations and stuff hiring people that are in college to run their marketing campaigns,
Right.
because they're like, oh, whoa, TikTok is this thing. Oh, whoa, this thing is, whatever. And I think the people that look at it and they go, you know what, I just want to be good at singing, and that is it. I'm going to focus on that, and everything else will fall into place. I think they pretty quickly find out that things don't just fall into place, because there's other people that are also very talented, but they're not pushing all that thing
There's
to the
millions
backseat.
and millions of those, actually.
Yeah.
So you really, really got to just have that drive, and you got to visualize that goal, and then realize it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
And you got to gear down and know that, okay, I'm going to be on this bridge, and I'm going to work through this job that I hate, that everybody else had to do the same thing to get where they are, aside from a few people. And when the window of opportunity opens up, I've already incubated that passion and pursued it a little bit on my own. So I'm not going in cold feet and have no idea what's going on. I'm going to have an anxiety meltdown, and a panic attack and all that good stuff. It's better to really just acclimate yourself into it, versus throwing yourself into a what are the ice challenge or whatever it is. Don't you want to ease in, or you want to throw yourself in? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think with all the different tools now, you can allow yourself to be so much more creative, and you can build to your strengths more than ever before, because there's just different tools, even whether they're sound engineering tools or whatever. They're all across the board. Even just with social media and stuff, you can brand yourself and you can build yourself to be anything across the board. It doesn't have to fit into one thing, and with genres too, it all blends. So you just have a much wider variety of things that you can do, but you still have to stay true. So my question for you is, Red Jumpsuit has been going on
close to
18?
20. Close to 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time.
As far as really, I mean, if you really want to boil it down to the nuts and bolts of Red Jumpsuit, this is our fourth band, my brother, our singer, and I.
Yeah.
When we would hang out with all of our friends, our clique, or whatever you want to call it, we'd be sitting around jamming out, hanging by the campfire, and he would sit there with acoustic, and that's how Red Jumpsuit started, right there. He literally started just hanging out, and he would just, oh, whoa, what's that song? And it's like, hey, that's Cat and Mouse, and you don't know that until later on. You're like, whoa, I remember kind of hearing variations of this as he was becoming the singer and songwriter that he is now. That was the infancy stage. He was really just kind of starting to spread his wings. And so, yeah, if you're really looking at it from full perspective, it was Ronnie, I'd say at least 20. And then the other pieces of the puzzle start to really kind of come together. There were multiple drummers and multiple instrumentalists before the band ever signed its first record deal.
Sure. Yeah, it had to kind of fine tune and find itself. So
Exactly.
How would you describe the branding of what is Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, and how has it changed versus day one or when Face Down came out versus what Red Jumpsuit Apparatus is today? Because the bones have to remain relatively the same. It has to still be the same band, but it obviously evolves. So how is it different?
Well, I would say what we did is just build a good cornerstone. And then once you have that good cornerstone, you can evolve the way you are feeling as you're experiencing life. But essentially the cornerstone is the most important thing, your foundation. So what we did is we just really kind of didn't want to sing about things that were just pointless, a party band or just making up stories and stuff like that. So that was the main thing. Everything's, about real life, true stories. Face Down, it's about our parents. Just things like that. It was just just right down to the just simplicity of real life. This is our story kind of thing. Putting it in songs, trying to help others so when they encounter that situation, they have a way to try to figure out how to get through it easier as well. So really, it's a spiritual foundation. Not really so much into religion, but spiritual, a moral compass of how to navigate the dark waters when everybody's giving you different arbitrary answers and there's no zero to be able to make a calculation. When you have a spiritual moral compass, you can navigate through anything.
Yeah. So then today, are you guys all trying to write new music about dad life? Or what are the subjects that you guys have kind of been focusing on now? Because it's a different maturity level, going into it.
Yeah, that aspect has definitely changed. You just get wiser,
Yeah.
When you learn, through relationships and marriage and being a dad. It's it's like it's life-changing. I know everybody says that, but it really is. And
Yeah.
when you experience it for yourself, and you're like, oh, that's what they meant. It really literally is. So yeah, things like that, lyrically. But musically, it's pretty cyclical. Lyrically as well, but there's just more like gems along the way that like we try to just, a lot of magicians, they don't reveal their secrets,
Sure.
We're trying to.
Yeah.
Giving them to you.
Yeah, because you want people to,
That's
really...
the point of our band.
Yeah, well, that's
try to help
how to connect
everybody.
with the music, right? It has to have some kind of meaning and purpose. There's obviously
Right.
like party and hype songs that are fun from time to time or whatever, but that's just not like kind of the angle that you guys are going for.
Right, we've never really done that. There's maybe been like 2 songs in the history of RJA where it's like that's in there somewhere, but it's not the focal point. It's like
Sure.
it's there to like try to relate.
Yeah. I like that you guys aren't like chasing another one hit type thing. You continue to just focus on making good music that's true rather than like times have evolved. How do we make something that people are going to like? You know what I mean? Like you're still
Yeah.
focusing on making stuff that you guys really enjoy and you feel represents you in the right kind of way.
Right. A great example of that is like if you look at Metallica.
Yeah.
They were putting out these awesome, amazing songs, and then they started trying to sound like what music had evolved to. Then all of a sudden, recently, they realized, wait a minute, we don't need to sound like anybody else. We're fucking Metallica.
Right.
Let's just sound like us. And then all of a sudden, now you hear their newer stuff, and it sounds back to almost the beginning. That's kind of like what happens to you as you start to develop, even as a man. You're like, you kind of like think, oh, I got to kind of keep up with this, but you don't actually. Once you develop your signature in the very beginning, know that that's your signature. Like that's what people are coming for. They're there because they liked that song, that style, and if you deviate from it too far, you might as well start a different band.
Yeah.
If you evolve into it, that can occur, and it hopefully you've already kind of sprinkled that on your first variations, so then it's not like a shock, so to say. Like so, that's why I was saying initially that like with Don't You Fake It, you're gonna hear a little bit of those different pieces of those elements of music, whether it's electronics or post-hardcore or pop or a ballad, like Journey style. It's just like we put as much as we could thinking about the future then. So then when we come across, it's like, yep, and you see where it's cohesive. If you don't do that, it's not cohesive. And it's not to say that you can't do that. I've definitely heard bands do it. They'll go from one thing to completely, opposite side of the spectrum. But that's just not us. That's not our thing.
Yeah. So how do you maintain the excitement for you and yourself when you go from having something that like hit pretty much as big as it can go? Obviously the one song Face Down is just like everyone in the world has heard that song a million times over. I think it's got 400 million streams or something on Spotify, and that's just since Spotify became a thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So everyone has heard that song. How do you maintain the excitement level of like, so what do I want to achieve next? We had one that is massive, right? But you're not chasing that. What are you excited about trying to pursue?
Well, what happens is you start to kind of like see the fruit of your labor, your fans.
Yeah.
And you realize, wow, this actually worked. We're really blessed to have really intelligent fans, and they understand the whole point of what we're doing. So you really start to focus on that because you've already checked that other box off the list. So you get deeper into the meaning and the reasoning and deep heartache. Like there's a song we have called Chariot, and you hear this story evolve where this man loses his son and there's nothing he can do about it. You hear about a mother who's like in the hospital dying alone and her kids aren't even there because they don't care. So like you boil it down.
Yeah. Well, and obviously when you don't have to chase anything, that allows you to just create freely. And when you have a solid fan base that really cares about what you create because they respect what you create and they've already connected on it, I think it allows you, again, that freedom to kind of just like, okay, this is what I want to tell, and I know people are going to listen to it honestly. There's going to be people that are going to come in and support it.
Yeah. Well, like you said, we had a few international smashers, which weren't the same. Face Down was like more of a phenomenon in the U.S. and other countries like Southeast Asia. The ballads were the smashers, by far.
Yeah.
So that was something that was a focal point and really just executed well with Steve Tramposh and his collective team of incredible individuals that marketed that and rolled it out that way to where we'll have longevity in the future when we go over there to tour, decades later. They still, you hear it in an elevator. It's like, it's just different. It's a totally different world over there. After we'd done that with Virgin, we decided, well, we can still do this on our own. So we had like an additional 11 independently, released number ones too. So like, as far as like goals, like you were saying, those kind of like being number one, after a while you start to like get over it. You're actually like, you want to really, really like boil down your fan base to where they're like, they're good, they're solid, and they're going to show like if they know. So that's really what we've done over the years. We've really just, the fan base has become concentrated and stronger. And it's actually like a cyclical thing as well, because the parents that are like now 40, their kids are coming with them, or the kids are bringing them, so we're seeing that full circle as well.
Do you find yourself being able to slow down a little bit more and enjoy the moment of it, like being on stage and recognizing how special that is? Because a lot of times when you're first chasing it, it's such a blur, it's so fast, things are coming and coming and coming. Right. I found it with myself too, where sometimes it's hard to stop and go, wow, I'm in this moment and this is really, really rad, that I need to enjoy what is happening right now because this is special.
Right. For me, I can't speak for all the guys, but for me, the older I've gotten, I've figured out how to just stay in the moment. And once you do that, you raise your consciousness level to a different vibrational frequency, and you can really tap into things. Half the time, I'm just not even paying attention to what I'm playing or anything. I'm looking out there, watching everybody have a good time, experiencing it with them, that collective consciousness that we're all having at that same moment, and feeling that energy and just taking it in and just appreciating it. And then when something happens, you turn around and bang into something, it doesn't faze you because you're in the moment. You're not letting that tear you out of that moment. And the older you get, you start to realize like you got to try to stay in the moment all the time. That's where real reality is, not the rectangle invasion that's occurring on the planet right now. Because really that's all we're doing. It's like rectangle everywhere. Yeah. It's like, I get it. It's a useful tool. But like the tool shouldn't be, a higher like used thing than physical reality.
Yeah.
You get disconnected. So like, that's not the moment. The rectangle's not the moment.
Yeah, I think the self-awareness is key, and it's just really easy because they have experts making these things specifically to try to take your attention. Like that's the whole goal of it, and it's really easy to not realize how fast you slip in. It's designed that way, that watching 100%. The numbers and stuff pop up, it's designed to make you go, I wonder what my Spotify numbers are. I wonder what, because it's right there for that instant gratification. Yeah. So, but if you can check yourself and go, wait a second, that's not why I make this. This doesn't actually matter to me.
Yeah, you're not going to control me, rectangle.
Yeah.
I open it up, I go straight to the admin page. I'm not going into the feed, doing what I'm doing, executing it, and I'm closing it.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of self-control to do that.
Yeah.
Because once you're done doing what your goal was to achieve, then it is easy to then get sucked in more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
So really, if you stay really goal-oriented, when you pick up that thing and do exactly what you're going to do, just watch how funny it is. Other things from the algorithm will try to keep you there.
Yeah.
It is designed that way, 100%. Up and down. That's why it exists.
Yeah, I mean, it's being intentional, right, with your time. It's surprising. I think maybe you felt this way too. After I became a father, I just was able to be a lot more intentional with my time because I was forced to, right? It was like you had to get the same amount done professionally and personally, whatever. You had to try to get the same amount done, but you had way less time to do it and way less energy to do it.
Right.
So you just started kind of planning your day that way, And so as you grow, a lot of times, like that's the key. If you want to be able to be successful, not just in like professionally, but personally with your relationships and everything else, it's just like, how do I manage my time the most effectively?
Right.
So that way I'm not overly stressed. I can still get the things done that I need to get done. And it's really not as hard as people make it to be, I don't think. It's just you have to eliminate those distractions that take up so much of the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are, like if you were to look at time and a linear format and allocate it per 24 hours and then remove all of the unnecessary rectangle time that shouldn't even be there and has nothing to do with your goals in the broad scheme of life, you'll have a lot more time.
Yeah.
So like you're saying, yeah, it really does. It's a super distraction. It's just like, I don't know. At this point, originally I thought it was like really like helpful But like there has to come a point where it's like, okay, has like the worst become better than the helpful?
Yeah.
And I don't think we're there yet, but like people have to gain control of that thing. It's a brainwasher. All of them are. It's just like that's what they're designed to do. That 60 cycle hertz. It's sitting there, flicker rate. Those are all like known like mechanisms of brainwashing that have been known for almost 50 plus years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're all happening to us now. So as you grow, you learn how to do everything. For me, when I get, within my business, as an example, my skateboard shop, after a period of time, for me, it was like 5 years, I kind of felt like I had learned everything that I was going to learn for the most part. The 99% of problems that were going to come up, I had kind of done and addressed them. I then find myself going, man, well, so what's the next thing I want to learn? Like, I got to learn something new. I have to always be doing that. What are you currently, because you've learned a lot about the business side of music. You've been doing it forever. So what are you currently kind of learning about?
Oh, man, for me, just, it's like the more you learn with music, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
So like that's really, for me, especially when we're doing Don't You Fake It Symphonic Edition. So like I'd already spent a lot of years kind of just playing with that on the back end production wise. Whenever I'm home, not mixing or mastering or producing, I would work on that. And like you start to learn new things, or like some things come back from like whenever I was working with my director, Greg Goslin, in high school. He was showing us these different node structures of like chords and applying them across different arrangements and strings. It was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that. And I'm like looking through theory books and like seeing my old stuff that I wrote down. So like I don't know, I think the human brain is not exactly like a hard drive. Things store in it, so to say, but they can eventually kind of go into the junk box. And after 40 days, they don't get deleted, but they kind of go into another junk box. That's like you got to dig to the depths in there, and you're like, oh, I do remember that, but it doesn't stay fresh in the frontal lobe of the cerebral cortex where it's actively being used, like our language and communicating verbally. It kind of just gets dormant. So the more you, to me, the more I pursue music on my downtime, the more I keep it fresh and I discover more. So at home doing production is probably, I'd say, what I really just, it's a never-ending passion. It never will end.
Yeah, well, and I mean, more and more things are become available. So even just trying to keep up with it in itself is like...
That's the production rectangle, though,
yeah.
So you got to be careful. Like, at some point you have to say, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
This little interface that's like, got this many channels and that much latency and this and that, it's sufficient. And better than what people made full albums on 15 years ago. So eventually you kind of like have to like boil it down. Don't let the technology take over you, and then start the goal. Otherwise it's like, oh man, but I need that new plugin, or I need that new IO, or I need that new upgrade, or another MacBook Air, or whatever it is, or more RAM, or a bigger solid state drive. And it just like, it will suck you in. It's designed that way. It's a dangling carrot from the horse that you can't get to make the horse keep walking forward to get the carrot.
Yeah.
And it never gets it.
Yeah, having that balance. I mean, like you said, Ronnie can go up and play an acoustic guitar and people love the music. Right. So it doesn't, I mean...
Because it was written that way.
Right. The tools are there to reach any kind of sound, to create awesome things, but you don't necessarily have to have them. So
right. You just got to use that nugget on your shoulders and like know when to draw the line. Like, okay, that's why it's good to always set your goal up front. Hey guys, what do we need to be able to, make this or be able to make a demo? And then set it and firmly set it like a budget. Don't like go back on and say, oh, but this new one came out, because then that's going to just be metaphorical roadblocks in your goals, and it's designed to do that.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to put an actual box around creativity as far as a schedule of this has to be done by this date. And sometimes you work on it and it's like, okay, I need one more week, and you do work on it longer. But by setting things like that, setting parameters, it forces you to think creatively and get that.
I always want that next plugin.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Well, dude, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. This is really cool that I'm glad I saw the DM from you randomly when I was at my cabin. I'd like just between swimming and stuff I saw it. I was like, oh, nice. Sick. So it's cool to actually meet you in person. One more question for you. I like to have people, because this goes on the radio, so we can play whatever music we want. Can you introduce a song that you had a heavy hand in creating and tell the story behind it, and then we'll cut to that on the radio?
Sure. You want me to just pick one?
Yeah, pick a song and then that you had a part of creating and tell me a story behind it.
Okay. Which one? I would have to say...
I'll let you pick a whole playlist that we play later.
I'd say You Can't Trust Anyone These Days from E. Brute.
Cool. What's the story behind it? I want to know more about it.
Just like being stabbed in the back, you know? But like trying to like cope with that without like physically going and raging on somebody.
Sure. Were you going through something at the time that caused that?
I mean, that whole album has a lot of that. I mean, it was released on March 15th. Ides of March, Julius Caesar, Brutus stabbing in the back,
Sure, okay.
That means even you, Brutus. And the song is called You Can't Trust Anyone These Days. And that's what it's about. I mean, it's just someone like that you thought was like, you know, that you trained that Anakin and you helped him as much as you could, and you thought he was your predecessor and he was going to be the next hope, and then they just turn and try to kill you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think a lot of us experience that through the years, whether it's through a friendship, a romantic relationship, or whatever. And when that person you have so much of yourself emotionally invested into, and you realize that maybe it wasn't 100% waste of time because you learned things from it, but that is gone, it's a crushing feeling for sure.
It is, and unfortunately, I don't think anybody can hide from that lesson. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are, how poor you are, what your political view is, or whatever. Everybody eventually gets betrayed.
Yeah.
Like you said, by a friend or romantically. And it's like, you got to realize that experience is happening for a reason. It's a scar that you can look back on later once you've survived it and say, hey, don't do that again. Remember what happened last time? That's what that scar is from. Just like we were talking about before with the cerebral cortex and things going into like a junk box where they're not in your like active memory. Well, that scar keeps it there. You're waking up every day and you're seeing that and you're like, I survived that and I'm not going to fall for that again. That toxic, verbal, weird stuff that can suck you in with friends or environments that distract you from your goals, your moral compass, whatever it is, you'll start to be able to identify toxicity, what is toxic for what you feel and not conducive for you.
Yeah, and
if you're looking at that scar.
Yeah, if you can keep living in the moment, you can recognize what the situation is and go, okay, regardless of what I thought I wanted yesterday or what I thought I needed yesterday, what do I want and what do I need now? The me who is right here with all the experiences that I've lived, what's my decision now? Let me make that decision. Dude, right. Thanks again so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.